Hello, welcome to the Candid Musings podcast, where I have interesting conversations with amazing guests on various life topics. I believe in the power of conversations to inspire, transform, and enlighten us. And if you are looking for open and honest discussions from unique individuals about their journey, then this is the right podcast for you. So today it's another episode on the Candid Musings podcast, and I have a very dear friend of mine, phenomenal, amazing individual. Nkechi'S here. And I don't know if I should start the introduction or let you sort of introduce yourself, but I'll do a bit of introduction, right? So Nkechi has been, I would say, our relationship started out as colleagues, right? And formed or became a friendship in the last year or two. And just for people who don't know, you are the country manager for the pharmaceutical division of Johnson & Johnson, which is an amazing feat. Like, I'm super proud of you. Aww. And we'll go into all of those details later. But just from your end, tell us something about you, that a lot of people don't know. How would you sort of introduce yourself?
Okay, so thanks, Nifemi. And by the way, this is so awesome because, it's not expected from you. You're the one who can do something like this, right? So, and pull me into it, by the way. So I'm really excited about, joining you on this. So how would I introduce myself? My name is Nkechi Ukaiwe. I am currently the country manager for the pharma arm of Johnson & Johnson, which is Janssen Pharmaceuticals. I am 42. I will be 42 years old in October 18th of this year. I don't look it, I know. Thank you.
You look stunning.
And then I'm a pharmacist by training, B Pharm. I studied in the University of Lagos. I am the first of 3 siblings. I have a sister and I have a brother. Amazing support system. I come from a very close-knit family. I am an extrovert, gradually going into an introvert. And I suppose this is because of age. I think it's because of age, to be honest. I used to be like the life of the party of some sort, but these days I'd just rather keep quiet and listen. Yeah, and of course, always be at home. In fact, I think I posted something recently on my Instagram where some guy was saying that you need to come out of your house to be able to. And I'm like, who is this one shouting at? He was literally speaking to me, and I'm like, oh, gosh, guy, chill, So yeah, so I'm an extrovert, introvert of some sort, and I love niche perfumes. I'm a collector of niche perfumes, and more recently, I love reading books. Yeah, okay, so I'm not a collector of hair.
Except that has changed.
I'm not a collector of hair, but I do have quite a lot of hair. I don't buy again, no. For real, I don't buy again.
Okay.
But do you know what it is saying? Not even with this dollar sales.
It's ridiculous.
But I have I have collected over the years, so I do have quite a lot of hair. And of course, thanks to you, I read books now, and I love reading books. That's literally what I enjoy doing the most. So I guess that's how I'll kind of introduce myself.
That's amazing. Really amazing stuff you've done. I was saying how we kind of met, right, which was during my time at J&J, and we're colleagues. And I think initially, we're just colleagues. We weren't friends, I would say, but we were very cordial. And I was always very fascinated with how firm you were. Like, you are like one of the firmest, open, honest, like, give it as it is kind of person. And I'll say that we probably transitioned into being friends after I left. And I remember clearly, in fact, when I was preparing for this episode, I went to dig into like our conversations and my emails, and I saw the email you sent to me when I was leaving J&J.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm going to read it to you because it was so sweet.
Don't make me cry. I have mascara on, and it is not waterproof, by the way.
So you said this was on the 29th of May 2020, and you said, "My dear Nifemi, your contribution to the team cannot be quantified. Your good work will be told by many, and believe it or not, you have become a standard by which all others after you will be measured. keep up the excellent work. And that I felt was so moving. Like, even reading it 2 years after, I still felt very emotional about it. I was like, oh. And I think just from there on, then we just started to connect beyond work. Like you said, we are part of the book club together. We've read so many amazing books. And it's interesting how the book club kind of pushes you to be a lot more vulnerable. And we've just found a space where, you know, we are sharing life experiences and bonding and being vulnerable with each other. And it's just been so beautiful. So I'm so grateful for your friendship. I mean, so
likewise.
Grateful to have you in my life. And
Likewise.
I'm so grateful that you're here joining me
likewise,
to talk to the people on my podcast.
Likewise.
Okay. So let's start with career. I think that's a good place to start. Like you said, you're currently the current country manager for the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical arms, which, I mean, I don't know, a lot of people know Johnson & Johnson as a company. It's an amazing Fortune 500 company. And to be the country manager, especially as a woman, I mean, we can't discount how difficult that is and how much of a feat that is. And I remember hearing that the position was open, right? So I remember that I heard that the incumbent had left. And I remember sending you a message immediately and saying, Nkechi, apply for this role. I think you do an amazing job. I think you should get it. And I think you should go for it. And a few months down the line, you did get the job. So tell us how that has been for you.
Oh, wow. Okay, so to be honest, it's always been in my developmental plan, right from when I started in the pharma industry. I always knew that I wanted to be in general administration and also leading a team, right? I wanted to always be in the commercial arm of the business because that's where my strength lies. And of course, again, you know, leading people is something that I eventually found to be, or relating with people, I think, is what I found to be a strength of mine. So I felt like, you know, if I am a people leader, I would also be able to impart some knowledge or, you know, give some form of leadership or give some vision to a team and they would run with it. You know, so I felt like it was kind of the path that I always wanted to go. And the good thing is I had a great first boss in that area when I joined the pharma industry, Mr. Dioti, and he was just amazing. You know, he was just really amazing, and that kind of guided me. And then when I got my next job, I had, which is, he's still, you know, one of the best bosses I have ever worked with in my entire life, and I think a lot of people will speak to this as well. His name is Charles Fojo. He's Ghanaian, and he came to lead the Rush team in Nigeria at that time. And he used to say to me, so my middle name is Olufumilola, and he used to call me Esther. And this is not a name that's been given to me by birth by my parents, but he used to say that I am a queen. He believes that I am, you know, I can lead people, you know, that sort of thing. So he used to call me Esther, and he used to tell me how he believes I'm a star, and that, you know, he just always used to you know, put out affirmative words and give me that kind of guidance. So I was the only female in that team when I joined his team. There were 5 guys, and I was the only female. And I kind of felt I was the aggressive one, interestingly, when I joined the team. And I always felt like I had to bulldoze my way around. And he used to say to me that just be yourself. Like, they're going to respect you for the work that you do. You don't need to prove to them that you can do more than they can do. Just be you, you know, and that really helped me. So it kind of shaped me in the way I approach things. But he also taught me to be very assertive but not aggressive, you know, so that really helped shape me as well. And of course, when the opportunity came, to be honest, I didn't want to apply. I felt I wasn't ready. And I guess it's a lot of, I think it's, I'm not say it's women, I'm just going to say that I have found that some of the females I've interacted with, comparing with the guys I've interacted with, when an opportunity comes, the females usually tend to say, I'm not yet ready, maybe not now. But the guys usually, I mean,
go for it
immediately. They don't even think,
whether or not they are qualified.
If they're qualified or not qualified, if they're ready or not ready, they just go for it, you know. And I have found that. So my initial reaction was, no, I'm not ready. I think maybe I should just do a few more years. But then when your message came, I was like, Nkechi, apply. I'm like, it's true, you know, but let me just apply. I mean, I'll just do the interview and then we'll just see how it goes, you know. And to be honest, I applied literally 2 hours before the close of the application. I applied just literally 2 hours before, and of course, after a series of interviews, I think they interviewed over 30 people. And, you know, when I got the mail that I have been selected, I couldn't believe it. Not because I felt like I didn't do well in the interview, but I just felt like 30 something people. Like, I know what
and just
I
being
did.
the
How
one.
can they, how?
Like, yeah.
What did I say? What did I do different? You know, so that's, you know, that's how that went.
That's always very sorry, I think, from a work point of view, you know, when you apply to competitive positions and then you get it. I mean, it's like, what are the odds that I'm the person, right? Even like, regardless of how much skill you think you have or how much experience, it's just, for me, it never. And there was something that you were saying about how you started and the first bosses you had, and it just reminds me of one of the things that I believe strongly in, you know, how your career starts and the people who are there for you at the beginning and the kind of place where you start from, how it shapes into what your journey eventually becomes. Because for me, I always remember fondly, like, my first job, my first, the first organization I worked with, my first set of bosses, you know, they were just, even the friends that I made, they were just transformational for the journey I had. So,
very true.
I mean, that's really good. So, I mean, I'm sure I've said congratulations to you 1,000 times, but I just want to say congratulations again, you know, on just making it, and it's just amazing. Besides that, of course, you know, you're doing phenomenally well in a career space. You know, as an individual, you're also someone that is very open, honest, I think vulnerable to an extent, and, you know,
I try to be.
Sometimes I'm also one person that tries to be vulnerable. At least in recent times, I've been trying to embrace that vulnerability and not seeing it as a weakness, right? Because I found that in putting yourself out there and just being vulnerable in that space, you know, you kind of find a lot of strength, right? How have you been able to get to the place where you're able to embrace your vulnerability and, you know, just be open about your life, your journey, and your experiences?
You know, Nifemi, it's interesting you asked that, because I can't tell you I know how that happened. Honestly, I'm not, like I said, I'm an extrovert, right? But I'm not particularly someone who, you know, is shy or whatever. But I know that there are certain experiences that I have gone through in life that I wouldn't come out to tell people about it. But somehow, I don't know if it is about, I can't even tell you how. I have to be honest. I think the first thing that that helped me to be very open, and of course my upbringing. My parents are straight shooters. Both my dad and my mom, they don't mince words when they speak. They are very respectful when they speak to people, but they are, you know, just very assertive. And I guess I got that from them, to be assertive. And then also integrity. Oh, my parents are big on integrity. Like, just let people see you for who you are, and then let them be able to know that when it comes to this, you know, Nkechi will always be open, should be honest, should be straight about things. So I think I kind of got that from my parents, about speaking genuinely and openly about things. So when people ask me uncomfortable questions, I tend to have no choice but to answer openly and honestly. I think maybe that's where it came from, right? And then I think one of the very big moves for me was when I started talking about, or when I started transitioning from using lightening creams and then moving back to my melanin.
Now that you spoke on that, I remember we need to dive into that, right? So I remember I was still at J&G at that time, and the article had gone viral on Diary of a Niger Girl, where at the time it wasn't obvious that it was you. So they just said Nkechi, right?
Because I told them to put my name.
But I think they didn't put your surname or something like this. So it was just your name. And I mean, just for the listeners, so this was a story about how you used to bleach
my skin,
your skin, and the decision that you made to stop, right? And then I remember you came into the office that day and you said, have you read Diary of a Niger Girl today? There's a story there and it's my story. So I immediately went to Dank's page and I was like, oh my God. And I think for me, that was my introduction to you being vulnerable, right? Because it's not easy to put yourself out there, to put your story out there. And it felt very emotional, you know, seeing the responses of people who had gone through the same struggles. And also, there were a lot of uplifting comments even for you as well. What was that? What was that like? Can you tell us a bit about that journey and just get into the place where you felt this is something I want to speak about?
Man, I mean, I've been using lightning cream since when I was in secondary school, sort of, you understand, tubes and stuff. And I had some people who were around me who were indulging in things like that. Not from my home per se, but my mom is naturally fair skinned, and that comes from her father, her grandfather, her siblings, some of her siblings. So my sister is fair skinned, my brother is fair skinned. You know, some sort. I was the dark one. I'm the one who was like my dad. So I was just like, why am I like
The odd one out.
yeah, sort of. It didn't bother me as much, but I thought if I attempt it, I can sell it because every other person is fair in my house. So I was just like, you know what? So it started with little tube creams and things like that. And then gradually, you know, I started going into Yaba and buying like all these big creams and things like that. And, you know,
Once they will mix.
the ones they will mix, they will mix all sorts. I didn't care what was in it. They'll just give me this big jar. It smelled horrible, but I mean, like I said, I'm a fragrance person, so I always mask it with fragrance and stuff like that. So I would just buy and then, you know, and then use it. And then I liked the comments and how people used to say, oh, your skin is so great, your skin is so nice. And then I was dating somebody who liked light skin girls, so it was competitive for me as well to make sure that I was the lightest of the girls that he was also, you know, chasing, or, you know, he liked, and I was trying to get his attention, so I needed to do the things that would help me to do that. So that was something that I indulged in, and I don't know, I tell you, and it's so good to have supportive friends, because my friends complain. They would tell me, Nkechi, you need to stop this. I mean, look at your knuckles. I mean, look at your hands. Look at this. You're a fine girl. You're always hiding your hands. As in, why? And then you're growing in your career. It just doesn't match, right? And they were very, very frank about it, you know, and I mean, I didn't find it offensive per se, but I just didn't listen to them, really. That's just it. But one day I just realized, of course, and then I got separated, and then from my ex-husband, and I was just thinking to myself, you know what, okay, so I need to now really reevaluate my life. And then I just realized that, you know what, I think first, let me start by stop using cream. What's the worst that will happen? I told myself, let me look like charcoal, whatever. I'll take it from there. We'll figure it out. And God was so good to me. My skin did not ash out as bad as I thought it was. So that encouraged me. And then I felt accountability was important. So I started telling people that, look, I've stopped bleaching, I've stopped using cream, so that people would, you know, would hold me accountable for that. So and I now thought, okay, so I actually approached Dang, because she was doing some different series, and I sent her a message and I said to her that, you know, why don't we talk about the bleaching series? Because I still wanted accountability. I wanted to hear encouraging words and hear from other people who had transitioned, and see how I could also, you know, at least know what to look out for, look forward to. And then she said, oh, really? Okay, so what might that sound like? So I just shared my story, and she was like, oh, do you mind if I share? I said, sure. And then with my name, or maybe not my handle, but please definitely share my name. I want people to know that, you know, those who know me will know that this is definitely Nkechi. You know, and I shared the story, and she put it out, and the comments, they were so kind. You know, they were so kind, and I just thought this is just a non-toxic environment, and I picked every single comment, and that encouraged me. So I started telling people about it, and then I even got reached out to by some other persons in the industry who wanted to have a one-on-one interview with me about it and all of that. But at that point, I wasn't ready for that. No, I just said to myself, no, I wasn't going to do that.
So I think it was really, really beautiful that you shared. And there are two things that I kind of want to piggyback on that story. First is, I recall that in the story you had referred to somebody's story that you read, which kind of encouraged you to feel open to share your story. And as a person, I've always been a big advocate of people sharing their stories, right? I genuinely believe that, you know, stories save lives, right? A lot of times we go through situations and we think that we are the only ones going through them. But by seeing somebody else who is going through something similar, or who has passed through something similar, you know, you find the strength to be able to go through yours. So I think it was really, really brave that you shared. And then the second thing, you know, for me was, would you say that the situation with the separation was what sort of pushed you to make the decision to stop? Or was it something that, so was it a situation of, okay, this is not working in my life, let me find something else that worked? Or what would you say spurred you to just make the decision that I'm not interested in bleaching anymore?
I'd say it's the latter. Definitely the latter. It was the separation that made me reevaluate my life. And then I had to start taking some bold decisions, because the separation itself was a bold decision, right? And I just felt that if I could do that, then I can do so many other things in my life and right some wrongs and things like that, you know. So whether the separation was forced or not, it happened, and it was a bold move for me. So that really helped me to be able to make other bold decisions. Yeah, that's basically
that's so beautiful. Just touching on that, right? And I think this is something that both of us we've always talked about. First of all, you mentioned when we were starting the conversation that you're 42. I mean, you're going to be 42 this year,
Yep.
October, if I'm correct.
Yep.
You look stunning, by the way.
I know.
Stunning 42-year-old woman.
Thank you.
But of course, we all know that in a society like Nigeria, it's difficult being 42 and single. Tell me about how that has been.
When I got separated, right, let me tell you when the reality hit me. I went to the cinema, and in Yaba here, because this is where I grew up and this is where I've lived most of my life. I went to the cinema in Yaba, and I was parking, and there was this guy who parked in a funny way, right? And I was saying to him that, look, you can't park like this. This is selfish parking. You need to move closer to one side so that you can give some room for me. And then the guy came out of his car and he blotted out some profanity, and I just said to myself that, I mean, what's wrong with you? And he had a girl with him, and I was like, are you trying to show off for her or whatever? I mean, this just doesn't make sense. And we got into an argument, and then, next thing he just started insulting me and saying all sorts of things to me. Now, if that sort of situation happened while I had my husband with me, most times I'll just pick up the call and I'll just tell him that, come, there's this guy here who's annoying me, because my ex-husband is big. He's, he has a big stature. So I'll call him. Like, literally, I'll just call him and be like, come and see this guy. I mean, come because it's in Yaba, we live in Yaba. He'll just come from where he is and be like, what's going on here? And by the time I was about to, and I just realized it's just you. Like, there's nobody to call again. You are your own defender. You are your own everything. Like, it's just you now. So rather than continue that argument, I got a bit emotional, because I was just thinking that if I still had a husband, this one would not talk to me like that. That sort of thing was going through my mind, and I started crying, and not in front of the person. I walked away, but I was crying when I got into the cinema. I cried throughout the movie. Like, it just really hit me that I'm on my own. That was just how it was. And honestly, most experiences for me had then been like that. You don't have a ring on your finger, because I was wearing my ring for a bit before I stopped wearing it. But I mean, when I stopped wearing it, it then became obvious that the way people react to you when you have a ring on your finger and when you don't have a ring on your finger, when you're married and not married, it's totally different. They respect women who are married more than they respect women who are not married, and that's just the reality in the way they speak with you, in the way they interact with you. It's just the reality. And I remember when I was looking for a place, I went to some place in Maryland, and the guy was like, well, I usually don't take single people, but you look responsible. And I kind of felt very bad about that, because I said to the guy that, I mean, are you kidding me right now? But that really just broke.
Well, you needed a house.
I mean,
so
honestly, I was just like, but you know what? I just told myself, I'm not going to get this house for that, and I just walked away, and I found somewhere else. But that's the reality. It's really tough on single women in Nigeria, to be honest. And I'm not saying single people. Actually, I'm talking about single women as well. It's kind of really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can say I can relate, right? Because it's not a lived reality for me, but I totally understand. And even being married alone, if you are by yourself, I've had situations where, you are even out with your husband and it's like, oh, I don't want to speak to you. I want to speak to your husband. Like, who are you? Even as a woman, the way you're treated and the way you're spoken to. So to not have that, I can totally understand how that leaves you feeling, emotional. That's tough. But how would you say that you've been able to navigate it? Because from where I see it and knowing you closely, you still thrive, right? You're still picking yourself, you're still doing things, you're having fun, you're living your best life. Of course there would have been times where it was hard to get yourself up, but how have you been able to get yourself back to the place where you're able to just thrive even in that space?
I think it's just, I would say family support is extremely important. Family support is extremely important. My siblings and my parents have been awesome. I don't know how people, can do it without their family, especially for those who've lost a loved one, like a parent and things like that. My heart always goes out to them, because, that that void, it's a big void. That's just the truth. But my parents have never made me feel ashamed, and I think that just really helped. And my siblings as well. From them, it doesn't matter whether I'm married or not, whether they have nieces from me or nephews from it's just that they have their sister, and they share everything with me. The kids, my nieces and nephew are like mine because we share so much. They leave them with me, so that kind of just covers up for having kids around me and things like that, and the kids, they send, they do proactive things, like they will share my picture with the kids, and then they will do voice recording and say, okay, say something to Auntie Nkechi and send it to me. So randomly during the day, my sister-in-law will just, it just lifts my spirit, because they're just like, okay, sing to Auntie Nkechi or something, So, and my nephew and niece who are in boarding school, they send me emails and always chatting with me and gossiping with me, and I also stay very close to them. So it's like I have my own kids of some sort. So that kind of, covers that. And if I have friends who are also very supportive. I have married friends, I have single friends, and my married friends embrace me. They pull me into things. They even try to hook me up sometimes, but no pressure there. And then I have single friends who we try to do things together just to make sure that we fill our time with things that are fun and enlightening and things like that. So that has definitely really helped me. And again, I had to also tell myself that being married is just a part of life,
not
and
all.
it isn't everything about life. And I had to come to that reality that it's a part of life. So it means that if you don't have this right now, there are other parts of life you need to explore and kind of bring to bear. So my career was one of them. Hanging out with my friends, being part of a book club is also a book club family. Speaking to people about different things. Even I like to experiment with my hands. I like to be a bit artistic. So I go on YouTube, I learn new makeup skills, new skills. I kind of acquire quite a lot of skills across the sphere. I try to do a lot of things. So that kind of fills my time with a lot. But companionship is important. And I will never ever berate that, and I'm not going to fool anybody into thinking, because you're not married, you're single, life just continues. I mean, companionship is important. That companionship could be maybe just in dating, maybe in being married, just having a life partner. It's really important. And when that's not there, it kind of has a gap there's a gap there. That's just the reality. I don't know how others perceive it, but it is a gap. That companionship, is really important. And I'm hoping that I do still find that, because I'm open to it. So I'm hoping I still find that.
I mean, we are all rooting for that to happen, and sharing whenever that happens. The most important thing is it's with the right person.
Absolutely.
And you get all the love that you deserve. So absolutely. But I can also relate to that place of trying to identify things that are going well in your life, right? I mean, in my own personal experience, even though it's not with finding a man, it's been, you don't have kids, right? And being married for almost 6 years, you get those questions, things happen, and there were times when I mean, after some time, I mean, there were also times like you said, where it's like, okay, so this is not happening for me, and it's hard. But I had to sit myself down and, with the help of the people in my life, identify the things that were working for me, focusing on things that were bringing me joy. That's not to say that the desire is not there.
Of course.
But I have come to the realization that there's only so much you can control in life at the end of the day. So I'm not going to spend all my energy focusing on the things that I cannot control. And I'm just going to live every day, and experience life in that way. So I think that I can definitely relate to, and I agree with you on focusing on things that work. What would you say are the things that society needs to unlearn, with regards to dealing with people who are, I don't want to use the word old, because I don't know, it just doesn't sound right, but because age is a number at the end of the day. But how society interacts, or what do you think we need to learn in terms of how society sort of treats people who are perceived to have not reached a particular who are perceived to have reached a particular marital status and are not there yet, right? What would you say, are the things that needs to be unlearned in your based on your experience?
Yeah, I think it's what I also had to unlearn, maybe not so much unlearn, but learn that being married or not being married is just a part of a bigger picture of somebody's life. That's not their whole entire person, there's so many other things about them beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think that I myself had to come to that realization and then pick myself up and say, let me also elevate the other things that are working well in my life and make that great, right? And I think that that's what society also needs to do. People need to understand that being married and having kids is just a part of life.
Yeah,
that's it, and not define people by that. So if you meet somebody, there are maybe like different portions of their life. Just like we have different organs that work in different ways, right? You need to understand that if someone doesn't have one part, it doesn't mean that the other parts are not functioning optimally. You kind of need to also explore that other part with them and try to get to know
and deal with
part.
people with grace. I think is very important. I think a lot of times people
grace and kindness.
just be kind. I think for me that's always the key to any interaction. Now, we were having a conversation, it was on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about, I think you had posted something and there was a conversation about marrying early, marrying late, the gains of marrying late versus the gains of marrying early. And I, for one, I mean, we had a DM conversation where I was like, I think that, first of all, I don't think there's anything as marrying late, right? And I think that it could be advantageous to marry late. And sometimes, I mean, I've had this conversation with people and they're like, oh, it's easy for you to say because you've gotten married, blah, blah, blah.
I know.
It's easy for you to say you found your own. So it's easy for you to say you can take time. But I also know that from my own experience and my own journey, you come into yourself as you grow older, right? You understand yourself a lot better. You understand what you want out of life. And for me, my own personal experience is I believe that I was lucky, to have found somebody who we eventually are growing on that journey together. And it could have been a different story because I don't think that I had a clue. I wouldn't say I had no clue, but I don't think that I had an in-depth understanding of what I needed in a marriage at the time that I did get married. And I got married at 26, right? And even myself and Kai, we had conversations where I was like, what were we thinking? Like, what exactly was doing us, So, but people see it differently. How do you see it based on that conversation?
I remember that post and I remember the comment it generated in my DM. Honestly, see, my personal opinion is that there is an advantage on both sides equally. That's what I eventually came to understand. And I have also seen quite a number of people who married early and things just did not turn out the way they planned, especially around fertility journey. For those who married early, I think that's one portion of marrying early that's a real benefit, to absolutely. Be very honest. And I think that seeing people who married early and not being able to fulfill that part, it puts a huge strain on their marriage, right? And then also getting to know their spouse because they are young and there are some experiences that you will get when you're a little older. They weren't able to get those experiences, so it was a make or break period for them. And I also know people who married late who did not do so well in marriage, but although to be honest there are fewer those who married late and are not doing well in their marriage. There are much fewer, and maybe it's just the number of people that I know I'm exposed to, but that are not doing so well. But I find that when you marry later, you have already experienced quite a lot of things and you're more mature to make certain decisions. Well, ideally that's how it should be, to make certain decisions and then learn from your mistakes. And if you don't learn as an adult when you're growing, then that's on you, right? But learning from your mistakes and being able to manage conflict and emotions is something that's so critical in marriage, right? And I think that the older you are, the more you're able to manage conflicts and managing one another, and that's what makes the marriage to last. Managing that conflict and conflict resolution.
Absolutely. And I think that definitely I totally agree with what you said. And going back to I don't think there's any right age, so it's not like at this age this is the right age or this is not the right age. But definitely as you mature, and people mature at different ages in life, you know yourself a lot better. You know exactly what you're looking for in a partner. You know what you're trying to achieve with yourself, and you know how another person kind of complements that. But that's not to say that people who marry late do not also, fall into situations where it doesn't work out. But I would assume that, like you said, the ratio would be a lot less, with people who marry when they get a bit mature. That said, we as women, there's a clear disadvantage of getting married late, right? Which we definitely need to talk about, and that childbearing, fertility. I don't know. I feel like nature. I don't say nature was unkind to us in that way, but based how we've been designed as women, the older you get, the less fertile you are. Absolutely. Right? And that kind of puts pressure on you, which is definitely, like you said, an advantage of getting married early, because you can get that out of the way, or you can understand what's happening in that space already, and buy some time, right? So if I use myself as an example, I got married at 26, going to be 32 this year. I've been married almost 6 years. We don't have children, but I still feel like I have time, right? And the dynamics would have been different if I got married at 32 and we're still waiting this amount of time, right? So that's definitely a clear disadvantage, and I'm sure that you have also had your own experience with pressure in that sense. How have you been managing that?
I mean, I got married at 30, so that's not young. I got married at 30, and getting pregnant, I don't know, I didn't even think that it would be a difficulty. You know when you just don't think about certain things. It didn't even cross my mind that I would ever have to talk about
infertility.
And I'm like, what's that? What's infertility?
It was a strange concept.
As in very, very strange. It was very strange to me, And when reality hit me in the first year of marriage, I'm like, huh? But then again, I mean, I was in my past relationship, in my former marriage, we were fighting a lot, and we didn't spend as much time together, so we weren't even having intercourse for us to be able to even get pregnant enough. You get, so I blamed it on the first couple of years, because we just were not in that space at all. But when we now really settled down, which was when I was about 33ish, and I started trying.
And it wasn't happening.
It just wasn't happening. And I was like, what is going on here? It was really confusing to me. And I went to the hospital and they checked us out and everything was fine. And I'm like, but what is it? What's going on? So I just thought, what? Oh yeah, let's go to IVF straight. I mean, and again, on that, so confident, 100%, it will work. It can't go wrong. How can it possibly go wrong? There's nothing wrong with us. 1 + 1 is 2. Went in there, came out, nothing. I'm like, no, come on, this must be a joke, right? And I was shattered. When I say I was shattered, and I think the shattering was from the expectation, because I was just like, excuse me, this cannot be happening to me, right? So it was just really bad. And then I took in on my own. It was even the funniest thing, because I didn't even know I was pregnant, and I was just like, I was just like, something is wrong with me. I just kept saying something is wrong with me, And then my ex-husband was like, why don't you send the cook to go and get a pregnancy test kit? And I was like, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, like that's possible, something like that. And then next thing, pregnant. I was like, are you kidding me? So that's how easy it was. And then 12 weeks after, I had a miscarriage. I'm like, no, this is not happening to me. And then I now started having so many challenges after that, and then I'll get pregnant again, and then I'll lose, and then I then went for IVF again, got pregnant, and then it was just a whole journey. I just thought to myself, you know what, I'm done with this. And so today the conversation is, why don't you just go and have a child? Don't wait for any husband, don't wait for just go and have a child. So I went to the hospital, I went to see.
So I want to speak before we get into that, and I want you to hold that thought, right? Because for me, one of the things that has surprised me, especially when I went through my own experience, is how little people speak about these things, right? Especially like miscarriages and IVFs. And I remember when I had a miscarriage, if I couldn't understand what I needed to do. Like, one day I'm at the hospital and everything is fine, and the next day this happens, right? And when I think that day is one of those days that I can recount it step by step. And I definitely believe that this is something that I need to sort of dedicate an episode to talk about, specifically in terms of miscarriages and IVF. And for me, it's always very interesting that there are not a lot of people who are sharing experiences in that space, and a lot of times you feel alone in that journey. And for me, I mean, I've had miscarriages, I've done IVF a couple of times, and until I started seeing people who had gone through their experiences, who were open enough and vulnerable enough with me to share their story, because I look at them and I'm like, amazing, this, that, oh, this happened to you, this happened for you, you have your kid. But when they started sharing with me the journey it took there, it's like, okay, I'm not alone, in this story, in this journey. And I feel like in a way those people saved me, right? Because it could be tough. But do you understand, like, why do you think that as a society these subjects feel like taboo? They're not things that we speak about. I mean, if you're asking people to get married so much, why are we not talking about the challenges that people face in marriage?
I think it starts first from the person who's experienced it. It's a pain you don't want to relieve. Talking about it is relieving it.
True.
And I think that it's a pain people don't want to relieve. Not so much about it being a taboo. I just think that people don't want to relieve their pain. And, it's an emotional thing to discuss. It's something that goes, you have to reach deep into your soul to talk about it. Even till today, there's certain things that gets to me. I mean, I feel like I have PTSD on certain issues when it comes to infertility. I can't lie to you. Like when I see certain things, like there's a particular pregnancy test kit that if I see it at the pharmacy, honestly, it sets me off because I know I used it very often. You get what I'm saying? And so I think that's where it starts from. The people themselves telling that story.
That makes sense.
Honestly, it's a painful thing to talk about, and nobody wants to relieve that, so they won't talk about it as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why for me, I'm extra thankful for the people who have shared their story with me, because it's beautiful to know that you're not you're not alone. You're not the only one who is going through it, because otherwise it's hard. It can be very, very tough. So you're saying something about going to have a child.
That's what they said. They said I should go and have children. They said, go and have a child. Why don't you just have a child? Why don't you just have a child? My auntie called me. She came all the way from Abuja. Sat me down inside the car for over an hour. That's the only thing she was telling me. Lord, Lord, be more, Lord, wow, more. Go and get a surrogate, somebody that will do it for you. She now started thinking about people she thinks might be able to help me. So that's the kind of conversation I'm hearing a lot now. Honestly, when I'm having conversation and people are like, oh, okay, oh, you're separated. Yeah, do you have kids? No. Have you considered maybe, just surrogacy, or have you considered just having a child? That's where the conversation is going today. So I even went to the hospital. I said to the doctor, the person who had done my IVF for me, I trust him. So I said to him, let's even get a health check. Got a health check. It says, oh, you have a clean bill of health, your ovaries are like that of a 20-something-year-old girl, everything is still firing very well, so let's see what we can do. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about sperm donor. And it's like, okay, so where do we get the donor from? And then something I didn't even think about. I'm like, it's true, donor has to come into this, right? Okay, so where do I start from that? How do I pick up somebody that I don't know? How do I know? Should I go to a friend of mine who's single, who doesn't, do I go to a married friend? Then all those questions that come in, and it's like, how do you then tell your child where they come from? Okay, so how do you sit them down and say, you don't know do you want to share responsibility? All this, and I'll run away again. I said, nah, you know what? No, that's okay. I think I'm fine the way I am, and things like that. So
it just, for me, it's interesting how life situations kind of make us or challenge us to consider different concepts, right?
That
so
I never
was teasing me the other day, and was like, maybe 5 years ago, I was like, I will carry like, when you're excited, like, oh, once I'm ready, this is going to happen, this is how it's going to happen. You kind of feel like you can dictate the terms around which it happens, and then once reality starts setting in, you're like, okay, reality check, what's out there, what's happening, what's that. And I found it fascinating, even people that I never believed would have conversations with me about alternative options, like elderly people. No, they're bad.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I can't believe this is coming out from your mouth.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I think definitely there's a lot more, like, people are embracing these things more, understanding more the challenges, the journey, and how potentially, we need help in that regard. And I definitely, this today is not, I don't deep dive too much into that. But So for you, you'd say that from a societal pressure point of view, it's something that you've been able to manage, and it doesn't sort of phase you that much in terms of
not
how
anymore.
you fit in into the society and things like that.
Not anymore. And if I mean, look, the older people get, right, the more you begin to really realize the things that are priority to you. And when people are coming with external pressure, you're able to manage it more, because the older you get, the clearer you become on exactly what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're already at a place where you're like, my life is not defined by this one thing. There's so many other things that define me. So yeah, absolutely, I feel you. I think that's really it on that subject. One of the things that I also wanted to talk about, of course, we are both in a book club together, which is amazing.
We don't even have a name. We need to get ourselves a book club.
I just got a book club.
Yeah.
No, one time we used to say that our meetings were going to be something between the wines or something.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Reading between the wines,
and
we
never even kept. No, now we need a name.
And initially we used to have like everybody have a drink when we are doing a book review, but now it's just vibes. But for me, the book club thing, I remember that it was just on this journey of discovering, okay, what else is out there? You know, what do I want to do? Okay, what did I used to do before that I have stopped reading? And stopped doing, and one of that was reading, right? And I had lost the habit, and I wanted to revive it again. And then somebody gave me a suggestion on Instagram and said, why not start a book club, right? And interestingly, we built this community that has just become like family.
Yeah, and we're
growing.
Yeah.
And we've read so many amazing books. How has reading been for you, and how would you say that has changed you in the last, I'd say 1 year plus since we started actively reading?
Yeah, I think I've become even more articulate in my words. I think that it has definitely helped me to see different perspectives. And I think for me, what I have enjoyed the most is hearing different people's perspective. I think that for me is one of the things that I take away from the book club the most. Getting other people's perspective, and then being perceived as, okay, so you're part of a book club, you read books, that's so cool. That's
a cool
vibe. Yeah. Because my friends, anytime I talk about reading books, they are so jealous, because they're like, Nkechi, let us be part of your book club. I'm like, no, you're not serious. I'm not never. And then sometimes they'll be like, oh, you're book club people. You don't allow other people to join your book club. It's like you buy a cult. Like, I have friends who are so upset because I'm like, I will never invite you to our book club because you are not a serious person. You spoil it for us, you know. So that cool vibes has come, and I love that as well. But reading now, honestly, it just takes my imagination to different places. And the fact that in the book club we read all types of books, right? We've gone from different types of books, and that has really helped me, because I probably would never have picked up a book to read.
What would you say is the favorite, the best, your favorite book that you've read?
Honestly, I don't know. I can't tell you. I think it ends with
us. I was going to say, can I say it ends with us?
It ends with us.
I remember that
you were,
that one.
It's really. It's really, it was
emotional. The conversation that day was emotional for everybody, but I think especially for you. So I think that book definitely means a lot to you.
And An American Marriage. Yeah, that one of the American Marriage. Those two books. That was something else. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on that I haven't asked you about?
No, really. I want to. I mean, for as many people who listen to this podcast, I want people to know that. Life is what you make it, and it doesn't matter the type of person you are. You determine and you decide how your life goes. If you want to be restrictive about it, I'll give you a classic example. I have a friend who smokes, but she smokes, but does not drink. And she's like, oh, drinking is so no. But I'm like, okay, but you smoke. And then I have someone who smokes, who doesn't drink. I mean, who drinks but doesn't smoke. You get. So I'm saying to myself that if people want to categorize it, all sin is sin. Yeah. That sort of thing. Or, you know, it's, if you're talking about health, they are both kind of detrimental to health. So you just pick your vice and move with it, right? Don't try to limit yourself. If you're going to enjoy yourself, better enjoy yourself very well.
I don't look down on somebody else's vice, because you have a different vice.
Honestly, that's just the truth. And I think that your life is how you shape it. So better start shaping your life the way you want it to be now. And it's never too late. For me, I mean, I realized certain things at the age of almost 40, and I don't feel like I've missed out.
What's the one thing you wish you knew earlier?
I wish I probably would have understood what marriage was. That I think I wish I understood what marriage was. And secondly, I wish I knew that I was responsible for my own life and there's nothing anybody can do to me. Like that fear of the unknown, fear of what people will say, it doesn't matter, because many years from now, those things will not matter. Those people will not matter. And I wish I had done things much earlier without being afraid, because I'm doing them now, and I wish I had done them earlier. I'm doing them now because I'm no longer afraid, but I wish that fear did not define how I did things and the kind of risks that I took. Yeah.
When you say that you wish you knew what marriage was, what do you now know marriage to be? When you think about marriage now, what's the picture? What do you think? What do you know it to be now?
I think it's a long marathon of companionship, and because two people are coming from two very different backgrounds, right? They need to understand that to survive in that marriage, you have to start looking for alternative things that can sustain your marriage, because being together with somebody for the rest of your life is not a small matter, and you need,
it's not a walk in the park.
It's absolutely not. You need to find ways to sustain that, and managing conflict is one of those things. Fueling the fire is one of those things. Handling external persons and external relationships, friends, colleagues and things is equally important, because those things can threaten the sanctity of that marriage. I wish that I understood and appreciated that much earlier. I probably would have done better when I was married.
And the thing about life is we're evolving. There's always, as long as we're here, there's a chance to do things better. So I'm sure that,
of course, if I get another go at it,
when you get another
doesn't
go
mean
at
I will not be angry
of
when
course,
something is pissing me off, but I think I'll be able to manage.
I definitely believe
better.
it to be a lot more blissful for you.
Amen.
So, I'm really, really, really rooting for that.
Thank you.
So I want to end with 3 signature questions. Just fast answers. If you could create one rule for everyone to follow, what would it be?
If I could create one rule. Oh, Nifemi, that's so hard. If I could create one rule for
everybody's following
everyone, be kind. Be kind.
Yeah.
Be kind.
Yeah. Kindness.
Be kind.
Really important. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, I remember. My boss, my former boss, Charles Fojo, he says to me that don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. That was all. That's all he said. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. You know, there's something I read where it says that every decision that we take in life, we're either acting from a place of fear or from a place of, I don't know if it was love or faith or something like that. Like whatever it is you do, it's either faith or fear.
Yeah.
And sometimes we choose fear because we are scared of the outcome, we're scared of the unknown, and something beautiful might be at the other end of fear.
Honestly.
Yeah, so absolutely. And what's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
The worst piece of advice. Worst piece of advice. Oh, I remember. I'm not sure if I want to share that. Yeah, because I didn't do it. Yeah, I'm not sure. Somebody told me to go and do something that is against nature, and I didn't do it. Yeah, absolutely. This has been really, really beautiful. It's been so amazing having this discussion with you. Thank you so much for joining me. You know, I really, really, I really appreciate pleasure. You. I'm excited that I push you to do a lot of things for the first time. So I'm looking forward to what next. That would be another first. Me too. You remember when you said, oh, you're going to start a podcast, and you were like, oh, you're looking for people. I remember sending message, Nifemi, pick me. Because I'm really breaking the boundaries now. I'm trying to move away from my fear. So anything Nifemi says, once Nifemi calls like this, no matter what it is, I'm like, me. And then that your post about your travel and everything, I'm like, I'm going to travel by myself.
Yeah, I remember you were saying you were going to go to Zanzibar, and then we saw that Zanzibar article.
Yeah, but I'm still going though.
You are?
Oh, absolutely. I'm still going to go.
Yeah.
I'm still going, for sure.
I remember a lot of people chatting me after that my travel adventure, like, madam, what are you looking for? And there was something I posted on my Instagram where for a long time I used to be obsessed with like what's my purpose in life. When you read all this book, like you have to you have to have a purpose, you know, you have to live life, you know, fulfilling your purpose. And I had no idea what my purpose was. Like, I had no clue what that was. That, like, that one thing that just sparks me up. And I don't know, I didn't think that I found it in a job. I couldn't place my hand on it. And then I listened to a podcast. This is one of the reasons why I love podcasts. I listened to a podcast, and in conversations, you can just find something that just relate, that, like, you just can just hold on to, right? And it was saying how something about a curiosity-driven life, right? Like, if you haven't figured out, I mean, if you're in a place where you haven't figured out that one thing, the best next thing you can do is to live your life from a place of curiosity. So I'm curious about something. I don't let fear hold me down. I do it, right? Like this podcast, I mean, I agonized about it for a long time. Like, what exactly is chasing me? But now I'm doing it. Even my adventure when I wanted to travel, I'm like, okay. And just moving in the direction of my curiosity has helped me create a lot of amazing experiences, even in my interactions with people, that has just helped me live like a rich life. So that's definitely one thing that
I'm with
that
you,
excites
don't
me.
worry.
So
I'm right behind you. I'm right beside you.
I'm
When you're
happy
jumping,
to
I'm jumping too.
I'm happy to always pull you in. So that's really it for today's podcast. I have a thing where I want to end every podcast with a quote. So for this podcast, my quote is this quote that I really love by Eckhart Tolle, which says that most humans are never fully present in the now because unconsciously they believe that the next moment must be more important than this one. But then you miss your whole life, which is never not now. So this quote just always reminds me how it's important to live in the present moment, you know, and how we cannot live from a place of the next moment is going to be the next best moment. Like, oh, when I have a child, then I'll be happy. Or when I'm married, I'll be happy. You know, just remember that your life is always in this moment and live a fully present life. Yeah. And that's it today.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Thank you so much, Nkechi. It was nice having you. This was fun. Thanks for being officially my my debut.
Your first. Great. Thanks, guys. Okay.
Thank you. And that's it on today's episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and a big thank you to my guests for joining me and sharing their story. Join me again next time for another amazing episode. Until then, keep living your best life.